Hi everyone, I'm John Padron, Solutions Architect and CJIS Compliance Specialist at DSM. Welcome to part 2 of our 4-part series on CJIS Compliance in the Cloud. In this video, I'll be reviewing some of the essential topics and major takeaways from the 13 CJIS policy areas. These policies need to be in place at your organization to meet CJIS compliance. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. On your screen, you will see the policy areas that we'll be reviewing. Let's begin with Policy Area 1, Information Exchange Agreements. Before exchanging CJI, criminal justice and non-criminal justice agencies shall put formal agreements in place that specify security controls. There are 3 main agreements commonly used. User agreements. These are meant for any organization receiving access to CJI. This is usually provided by a CSA granting access to CJIS systems. Interagency and management control agreements. This is a document exchanged between agencies sharing or providing any CJIS duties for another agency. For example, between city government IT and law enforcement agencies. And lastly, CJIS security addendums. This document is a standard addendum added to the existing agreement between a government agency and a private contractor. Up next, Policy Area 2, Security Training. Within 6 months and every 2 years thereafter, basic security awareness training is required for all personnel who have unescorted physical or logical access to CJI. There are 4 primary levels of training, depending on an employee's role at the agency, with local agency security officers having their own training, and all records of training shall be maintained. Moving on to Policy Area 3, Incident Response. Agencies must have in place incident handling procedures to prepare adequately, detect, analyze, contain, recover, track, document, and report the incident to appropriate agency officials and/or authorities. One of the primary responsibilities of an agency is to report an incident that could or has affected any CJIS systems to their local CSA's ISO. Next is Policy Area 4, Auditing and Accountability. This section states all agencies shall implement audit and accountability controls to increase the probability of authorized users conforming to a prescribed behavior pattern. Examples of these are server event logs that record system logons, password changes, actions by privileged accounts, and the access of audit log files. Moving on to Policy Area 5, Access Control. Access control provides the planning and implementation of mechanisms to restrict reading, writing, processing, and transmission of CJIS information. This includes concepts like least privilege, role-based access control, RBAC, and access control list, ACLs. Major topics within this policy include session locks and remote access, which we'll discuss in future parts of this series. Up next, Policy Area 6, Identification and Authentication. This policy focuses on the processes to identify and authenticate each person who is authorized to store, process, and transmit CJI. The main topics that are highlighted in this section include password standards and advanced authentication. It also goes into great detail and even provides examples of when to implement advanced authentication. We'll touch on advanced authentication again in a future segment. Moving on, we have Policy Area 7, Configuration Management. This section speaks to topics including only enabling essential functions on systems known as least functionality, as well as changing management and documentation pertaining to security, systems, and networks. Next up is Policy Area 8, Media Protection. This section describes the procedures which agencies shall have defined for securely handling, transporting, and storing media. Different procedures and controls are explained for both physical and digital media. The significant point here is agency personnel must witness the destruction or it must be carried out by authorized personnel. Let's move on to Policy Area 9, Physical Protection. This section lays out the policies and procedures that must be documented to ensure CJI and systems that they reside on are physically protected through access control measures. Important topics to pay attention include PSLs. No, not pumpkin spice lattes. Physically secure locations versus a controlled area, as well as physical access measures, access control, and visitor control. Next is Policy Area 10, System and Communications Protection and Information Integrity. This is a vital section detailing the policies and methods for protecting systems and communications. Main topics here are shown on the screen. Moving on to Policy Area 11, Formal Audits. And if you're still here with me, we're almost there. Formal audits are conducted to ensure compliance with applicable statutes, regulations, and policies. Main topics include triennial, that's every 3 years, audit of every CSA by the FBI, as well as auditing of all criminal justice agencies and non-criminal justice agencies at a minimum of every 3 years. Then we have Policy Area 12, Personal Security. This section focused on security to protect against insider threats and disciplinary actions agencies should take if such an incident should occur. Lastly, we have the final policy area, number 13, mobile devices. This policy area describes considerations and requirements for mobile devices, including smartphones and tablets. This section's important topics include mobile device management, MDM, system integrity, incident response, access control, and compensating controls in place of advanced authentication. Well, we did it. And if you made it this far, I appreciate your time and hope you found this valuable. Next time, join me for Part 3, CJIS Compliance, Cloud Specifics. See you then.